much stronger through the weight training. Give you a good example. A year ago, he could do 2 push-ups. Now he can do 40 push-ups.
My gosh.
Quite an amazing accomplishment.
What do you want to do with your career, your life? Do you want to be in a competitive situation, Chris?
Yeah, I'd most rather play football or box.
Okay, well, I bet nobody gives you trouble now in your age range, do they?
Not
No.
really.
Okay. Well, did we have one other exercise, Ken, before we left? Okay.
Let's do a row, Chris. Or I'll put it over here for you. Let me give you the weight. Another important point with kids in weight training, Gary. If you notice, this is an exercise primarily working the back. If I were to do this exercise, perhaps I would pick up a barbell, like so.
Yeah, but now you're exposing your back. Or
Exactly.
he would be, right? Okay.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's in a stable position. It's appropriate for a beginner, child, or adolescent, or a beginning adult, even. They all reap the same
So if I walk
benefits.
in on my youngster and he can't get that bar off his chest, I know he's doing too much, right?
He's using much too much weight.
Chris, thank you very much, and good
Thank
luck
you.
in whatever you choose
Nice
to
to
do.
meet you.
Ken, thank you, and nice
Thank
meeting
you,
both
Gary.
of you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Nice to have you. Next, how to survive a marriage when your husband is miles and miles away.
Bend your head over. Bend over with your head. That's good. That's good. That's good, Chris. Good job. That's it. Good. Beautiful. Lock. That's it. Slowly. Okay. Try. Slowly resist it. Down. Stop. Down. Stop. Down. Stop. Good. Drive it. Next. You give it first. You got 2 reps.
afternoon. Welcome to The Exchange. I'm David Smith, and Sally Ann Mosey is with us in for Becky, who's holidaying this week.
We have with us Ken Sprague and Chris, his son. They have co-authored a book. It is entitled Weight and Strength Training for Kids and Teenagers. So if you're looking forward to pumping that iron and getting ready now that the summer's over to get back to school, you'll have to stay tuned. We have more on that.
Well, and while we've got kids here, their bodies is something that we are all feeling more and more concerned about. We have got a couple of folks with us today who have been concerned with this for a long, long time. Well, certainly one of them anyway. He is the gentleman who founded the Gold's Gyms that you know all over the country. Ken Sprague is his name. And he's got a young gentleman with him who he feels pretty strongly about. After all, he is his son. And this young guy, at the ripe old age of 10, started getting involved in bodybuilding, and what he has done has won all kinds of tournaments and championships, and is going on to more national competition, I guess, right, Ken?
Yeah, right, in the shot put, in the discus throw.
In the shot put.
An application of weight training.
Which is something that we didn't think of young guys, he's 11 and a half, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, as doing, but it certainly is working.
It is working. When I grew up, the prohibition was no weight training.
Yeah.
It's bad for a child's body. But the last 10 years or so, enormous volumes of research have come out endorsing weight training for kids. Matter of fact, the American Pediatric Association endorses weight training for kids.
Well, you felt so strongly about it, you came up with Weight and Strength Training for Kids and Teenagers, a book you two kind of collaborated on, which trains people how to do it right, I guess, right?
It does. Adults' bodies, child's bodies are different, and consequently training habits should be different. For example, you take a look at Chris and I together, my shoulders much wider. His are not going to develop for a couple of years yet anyway. So consequently, how one stresses his shoulders much different than what my shoulders can handle.
At what age would you say is it all right to start exercising? Because I don't know if it's a fallacy or not that if you started too soon that you're at a growing age, your tendons and bones would have to be affected by it.
You know, I'm glad you brought up that fallacy. Kids as young as 5 can physically withstand the stress of weight training. The problem with young kids, though, of weight training is whether or not they're emotionally ready. Can they sustain an attention span? That's the primary factor. Kids of any age can withstand the physical stress. Big thing in the past, does it stunt growth? I think that's kind of the indication of your question. And the research is indicative that no, it doesn't stunt growth, it actually accelerates growth rate. An old myth.
Why should that be? What is it in the physiognomy that causes that?
Well, what it is the strenuous exercises induces the production of more growth hormone, and growth hormone adds to height.
A lot of the youngsters today are getting this more and more thrust on them by coaches. They're starting football and baseball and other sports very early.
Very early.
And they're getting the stage door coaches, or call them what you will, people, parents and so forth, who are pushing. Is there a right amount to go in inspiring these kids? And at what point do you say, okay, that's enough?
Yeah, I think the rule of thumb is don't take an adult's training program and apply it to a child. Again, kids are kids, adults are adults.
Yep.
Best, and they'll gain. Chris, for example, has doubled his strength the first 6 months he started training. And he did so by not overstressing his body at the same time. 2 sets, 10 repetitions, that's enough to accomplish the goal of increased strength, which will translate into better sports performance, as it has with Chris, and also give a leeway for safety.
So that also gets rid of the other, I guess, fallacy, no pain, no gain?
That's right. Well, there's pain in 10 reps if you use a heavy enough weight, but the real key is to stay away from that maximum type lifting. And for kids just starting, stay away from overhead lifts. You can imagine a beginner of any age trying to balance a weight above the head, especially in a child whose coordination hasn't developed yet, is particularly at risk.
So they should really be supervised as they do this.
Should be.
Now, Chris, we've got some dumbbells here for you. These something that you would use normally in your training?
Yes.
Okay. How would you use them, and what would you do? What would be a typical utilization of these dumbbells by you in your training?
Why don't you demonstrate a lateral raise for the shoulders?
Okay.
We were talking about a child.
Strap that onto you so you don't. Excuse me.
Here, I'll hold that for him.
All right. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
We were talking about a child's physiology. It's different from an adult. Here we've got Chris using a shoulder exercise. If you notice, it's not going above his head. That's fine. Thanks, honey. An adult, I might, for example, use overhead lifts. The key here is don't raise the weight above the head. Still works the shoulder, still makes the shoulder strong. Still use the same type of equipment that that finds dust in most garages in this community, probably.
Mm-hmm. So when you're a teenager, though, and you're working up to bodybuilding because your body's changing all the time, do you think that lifting weights is also going to help you out as far as self-esteem goes?
It's a major factor. Probably the greatest self-esteem inhibitor in adolescent females particularly is self-concept of body. And what better to change the body's appearance than weight training? As a matter of fact, adding muscle is the only way to shape a body. Now, in Chris's case, well, what do you feel about weight training?
Well, it makes me feel great after every workout and enhance my sports performances tremendously.
How about the competition you do? Now, what have you competed in?
Well, I compete in the shot put nationally for Track City Track Club.
Okay. In what age group?
Well, there are many age groups, but I'm a midget right now, which is 11 and 12.
He's not going to be a midget for long.
No, he's no midget in size, folks.
Going.
That's just a category, an age category. And how far do you put whatever? What is the weight of the shot that you're using?
6 pounds.
6 pound shot. What are you doing with that? How far do you put it?
42 feet.
42 feet.
Wow.
I'm going to brag a little bit on him here, but from the weight training and from his dedication, he was last year's national champion in the 10 and under age group.
What are your aspirations? Are you going into more training for sports, or do you want to maybe become someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Lou Ferrigno?
Training for sports mostly.
Good luck.
Well, it sounds like you guys are well on your way. Obviously, Ken, with your expertise, you are perfect guy to be dealing with this gentleman, and you're doing just beautifully. 11 and a half years old. Big guy for 11 and a half. Let me tell you, folks, you maybe can't tell it quite as well. Weight and strength training for kids and teenagers. This is male and female. And obviously, there are different training regimens for both. But we want to thank you both for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Continued
Thanks for having
success.
us.
That's great.
A real
Nice to
pleasure.
meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And we've got some more coming up for you. Helping out there in just a moment.
For Chris. Chris can do between 800 and 1,000 pounds on any given day.
This 11-year-old is a national champion. He'll show you how to pump up your kids next.
Used to be that when you talked about lifting weights, you automatically thought of guys out there working up a sweat. Yes, muscle definition. Then women got involved in it, and now they tone themselves up using weights. You know what the latest is? Kids are pumping up too.
Well, there used to be a time when kids would just have fun goofing around with dad's weights. But today, kids who lift take their training very seriously.
But we have about 500 pounds here that Chris is easily pressing with his legs. This is light for Chris. Chris can do between 800 and 1,000 pounds on any given day. That's incredible for an 11-year-old.
Ken Sprague and his son Chris are the Mario and Michael Andretti of the weight room. But instead of turning laps, this father and son team from Eugene is turning weight training for kids into the latest fitness trend.
One more. It's very easy to get a child hooked on weight training because it has immediate rewards. They get stronger, they feel better. And by getting hooked, they start watching their diet. That, in turn, can lead to a lifetime of fitness and health.
20 years ago, Ken owned and operated the now world-famous Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, California. So Chris's interest in weight training didn't come as a big surprise.
More surprising was the fact that he stuck to it. Good.
Chris began training 2 years ago because, like most kids, he loves sports and sports heroes.
I usually watch the WWF on Saturdays, the World Wrestling Federation, and I see Hulk Hogan and all of those guys. They look pretty big and